Okay, so I'm going to strip clean this bridle. It's been used quite a bit, so it's important to make sure that it gets strip cleaned, so that when I strip clean it, it gives me a really good opportunity to check safety points. And if you do your bridle on a regular basis, like I am here, undoing all of these buckles, the tight ones that we can get sometimes around by the reins, where they attach to the bit, and also on the cheek piece, then it helps us to keep the leather nice and supple. I'm putting the bit into some hot water and I'm going to allow that to soak, and that way that also will help me to make sure any bits of grease come off it okay. So I next need to check all of the buckles and have a quick look and make sure I remember where the holes are, so that when I put the bridle back together, especially if the bridle's been worn by other horses, I make sure that I put them all on the right hole. So first of all, as I undo it, I give it a good clean, making sure that with my damp sponge, again having used warm water, that I'm really getting in on these parts of the leather where they bend where the bit goes, to make sure that I try and move as much grease as I can. Now, when I do this, one of the things that is always a little bit strange is that when we clean tack, we use saddle soap as well. And oddly enough, we don't actually use the soap to clean. We use the soap to help keep the leather supple. The flash strap I'm doing now, and again, this is another important strap because you can get a lot of grass and grease around where the buckle lies, and where it is when it's done up by the horse's lips or chin area, it can get really sore. So doing the noseband quickly now, and I try and always remember to make sure I do it in a sort of order, so it's sort of quicker for me to assemble. Again, making sure that we give a really good rub to all of the parts that are going to be in contact with the horse's coat. And as we're doing it, just keeping an eye out for the buckles to make sure that stitching is secure on the buckles, and the little bits of leather known as keepers are also secure. So we're nearly there. I need to get the bit out because obviously that's been soaking quite a while now, and I need to make sure that that's got time to dry, or I find a cloth to make sure that I can dry the bit properly. I'll get that now. So we're going to just let the bit drip for a moment. The reins, again, really important, making sure that I'm checking the buckle where the reins actually undo in the middle, as well as making sure I'm not forgetting these attachment points for the bit. And where these are rubber reins, it's important to also just make sure that the rubber itself has got a bit of grip, because the grip can wear, and you just give those a simple rub. With them being rubber, we don't put soap on the rubber because it's not needed. Okay, that's the clean bridle. I'm then going to use soap, and there are many different types of saddle soap, and this is the part where, bizarrely enough, we use the soap to actually keep the leather more supple rather than clean it. So onto the part where using the saddle soap on the sponge to make sure the leather's nice and supple. And I find it can be useful to imagine that you're building the bridle onto an imaginary horse, so hanging it on the hook can really help. So the brow band gets fed through the headpieces, and that just slides on. And then I get the cheek pieces, and I make sure I put lots of soap, again not too much soap so it goes all foamy, in those areas that can become quite hard and dry. And then importantly, we need to fit the cheek pieces onto the fourth hole, as that's where they were when we took the bridle apart. So both cheek pieces on, and making sure that when the cheek pieces get done up, that the leather goes through the keepers onto the fourth hole, and just counting to check that it's in the right place. This will help the bit be more even in the horse's mouth. So the next is the noseband, and just making sure that there's not too much soap on the sponge, and also importantly that the sponge isn't too wet, otherwise I'll end up with a foam covered bridle. As we fit the noseband, again we slide up under the headpiece through the brow band, and do the buckles up, and this time it was on the 6th hole, 2, 4, 6, to make sure this will be in the right place, all tucked in and secure. Okay. So the next part is fitting the bit to the bridle, and when we do this we need to think about how the bit's going to sit in the horse's mouth. So easy to get it the wrong way round. This is a snaffle bit, it has a nutcracker action, so it opens and closes, and if we have it what's known as back to front, it doesn't work so well, and that'd be really uncomfy for the horse. So almost imagine you are the horse, and that will help you look at the bit and try and decide whether you've got it the right way round. So you then have the correct action, and look at the shape of the bit. So we pop the bit back on, and we press down, sometimes quite firmly with your thumb, to make sure that the billet's in properly to the leather. And the billets on this bridle to the inside, so they will lie close to the horse's face. If this bridle had buckles, then obviously that would be the other way round, and the buckles would appear on the outside. So next is the flash strap, and again this needs to have lots of soap on it to make sure that it's nice and soft. Where it's positioned when it's done up on the horse is a sensitive area, so we need to make sure that it's all supple and soft. And that comes round and simply goes through the noseband, and then the reins. So for the reins, again making sure that we've got lots of soap in those bits of the leather where they can get just that little bit hard and a little bit stiff if they're not kept supple. And we attach those in the same way, pressing down, making sure that the billet's secure. And then remembering that we don't actually soap the rubber part of the reins. Obviously that would just make them very slippy. We don't need to do that. And making sure that we haven't forgotten the middle part of the reins where there's the buckle. Get that done up, and making sure that it's safely in its keeper. So that is the bridle, all clean and fit and ready for use. And then it's important to try and sort of think whatever works for you to hang the bridle up. The main thing is about it being neat and tidy, so that you can see quite easy that it's fit, it's clean and it's ready for use. And just sorting out all these last buckles and straps, making sure they're secure, will help, make it less likely that you're going to lose straps if the bridle's moved from place to place or risk anything dropping off.